So first, I would like to make a statement, and it's veering on the quote-unquote inspirational platitude type of stuff. But the world is fucked up. We all know this. The world is fucked up. People are fucked up. And I suppose this statement is targeted at if someone young watches this, a kid or someone with not much life experience. I just felt the need to say this. People are fucked up. Fucked up things happen. The world is fucked up. And shame is a big factor in how people live their lives, it seems. It's an enormous factor. Things happen and shame creeps up and takes over, and we don't know how to deal with them, and we bottle them up. And it's something I wish I knew when I was younger, that it's a recipe for disaster. If you make it a practice, if you learn to bottle things up, to hide because you feel shame for things that have happened, whatever happens, and fucked up things will happen to everyone, I think. At least most people, probably everyone. And it's important to understand that fucked up things happen to everyone. People make stupid, crazy mistakes that have enormous consequences on themselves and people they love. That happens all the time, everywhere, to everyone. And there's no reason to think you're special. And that for some reason, something that you did or that happened to you, you should keep it for yourself and you should feel shame for it. You're not special. You ain't shit. You're no one. You're one of trillions. You're not the first, you're not the last. Whatever you did, whatever happened to you, happened to many, many people before you and will happen to many people after you. So, get off your high horse, accept what has happened, deal with it. Don't run away from it, because it's very easy to make it a habit. It's very easy to make shame, to leave shame behind the wheel and to live your life behind a mask. And I felt the need to say this. And I'm certain most people know this, but I suppose as a kid you don't know this. You think when something happens, you think it's huge. You think you're the only one. You think no one should know. And it's important to understand that you're not special. Whatever happened, deal with it. Talk to someone. Find someone you can talk about it with. And don't think, that it's the end of the world. Anyways, the lighting setup has changed yet again. I said a lot of swear words in that introduction, though I'm trying to cut back on the swear words. But it's winter. I'm realizing every year that I don't like winter. And the days are short. So last week I put my light on my punching bag. My punching bag is holding my lights yet again. But I'm so resourceful, I decided the angle wasn't right. So I moved my entire punching bag. It's 150 kilos. That's what's holding my light. I just moved it a bit to get a different angle for the light. Call me a genius. I don't know why the friggin' camera keeps shutting off. Let's fix this. Sidewalks in my life, they don't let me down. Where are my batteries? They don't let me down. My camera just switched off, so I changed the battery. Don't know what's happening. Every time something happens with my camera, I think, oh, there it goes, it's dead. I'm screwed. I'm done. I don't have a camera anymore. I don't have the money to buy new ones, so I'm done. But no, it's not done. It still works. Thank God. I was filming the sea at midnight when I was studying in Falmouth. I like to go around the beach, and in some, I don't know how to describe it, an area very secluded. And I would walk around and I would go as close to the water as possible on the rocks and film the sea sometimes at night and the moon, things like that. Who knows why? And once I decided to get as close as possible to the water with my camera. I had no tripod, I was holding it handheld. So I sat there on this rock. The moon was lighting everything. There's no artificial light in that area, so it was pure moonlight and it was very bright, huge moon. And I bring my camera up to record, and then I get hit by a huge wave. I'm soaked, the camera turns off, and I think, there you go. One too many risks, and the camera still works. So, thank you. Thank you. Is this recording? Yes, it is. So this camera, I've dropped it. I've gotten hit by waves with it. All sorts of things. Still works. Very thankful. On the topic of thankfulness, I wanted to start my episodes with talking about gratefulness. And I am grateful for a character I've talked about repeatedly on this podcast. Today for the last time. And he is in many ways my antithesis. Antithesis? I like this word, but I can't pronounce it. My opposite. Especially now with all this shit. And that's the Top G. And just like everyone, I discovered this character. He was everywhere. I couldn't help but consume his content. I held him in high regard because he ticks a lot of the boxes which I would like to tick in terms of success and self-development. And about a week ago, or in the past week, I had a weird feeling. I think it's when I woke up. I don't know if I had a dream or something. Just had a bad feeling about this guy. A bad feeling. And immediately the idea of seeing his content, and I did stumble on it on the internet, as one does, it repulsed me almost. Just a bad feeling. And so I've decided that I will stop consuming his content. Now, after that, I did a bit more research. It's easy to turn a blind eye when it seems like, when you want to. It's easy when there's a lot of positives. It's easy to turn a blind eye to the negatives. And I did that with another character whose content I've consumed a lot of, Chris D'Elia. And after the research I did on both characters, a lot of information surfaced which meant that I had to make a choice. And I do feel like it feels wrong to consume that, well, Chris D'Elia's content especially. There is a lot of evidence out there that he did things that are amoral, and that behind the scenes, in specific situations with specific types of people, he can be quite a horrible person. And this idea of separate the art from the artist is complicated. It's very complicated, because if you are an amoral person who goes around hurting people and doing bad things, and you don't get punished for it, should those who appreciate that person's work be happy? Are they above morals? No, they're not. So it's complicated. But on the case of Top G, I have seen there is information And, it's hard to tell if it's true, but I had the bad feeling. At the end of the day, it's all that matters. So I am very grateful for the things he has shared that I feel are positive and useful. On the topic of women, I think he is off the mark. And how do I say this? Either we are complete opposites in terms of how we view women, or he's just fucked up and he's encouraging people to be degenerates. It's one or the other. Now, from my perspective, the idea of collecting women like trophies, or collecting sexual experiences with random women who happen to be beautiful like trophies, is disgusting. And the idea of having multiple wives is nonsensical. Now, I'm in a relationship with a single woman, as in just one woman. She's not single anymore. And we see each other just barely once a week. And I can't imagine being able to maintain a healthy, productive, positive relationship with multiple people. I don't get that. To me, that doesn't make sense. It's a lot of work, a big commitment. Even in my situation where I'm just basically a kid, I'm 24 years old, she's around my age, and we see each other once a week. We don't have, huge responsibilities. Life is pretty easy for us. And already it feels like it's a big commitment. So I don't understand this idea of having, it seems like they're encouraging the opposite, making a small commitment, especially on the emotional side, because obviously the people who preach that ideology have a lot of money, and that's what they show first, the idea that they can look after women financially. But the idea of a relationship to me is not just that. It's not that at all, actually. There is an emotional component. So, I don't know, maybe there are different types of men. Some men are different, or maybe some people are broken and they go towards degeneracy. Who knows? But since this section was supposed to be about gratefulness, I am very grateful for many things that he has shared. And it's easy to decide to turn a blind eye when you see a character as formidable as he is. And I know he has his haters, but objectively, he is incredible in terms of what he has achieved, the many things at which he excels. He's one of one. And I suppose there's no light without darkness. There's no light without darkness. And when you decide to cut corners, there are repercussions. And I'm obviously referring to the way he acquired, his first significant kind of amounts of money. And it is amoral. I remember the first time I heard Jordan Peterson mention him and say, I don't like pimps, essentially. And I was kind of angry because I thought he's so much more, and he's repented, so to speak. And now that I'm no longer in the kind of honeymoon phase with this character, and I have more perspective, I suppose, and I'm a bit more detached from it, Jordan Peterson's statement rings truer now. Also, I just realized because actually I was gonna say I'm gonna have to do a cut because the camera shut off for a moment and I had to change the battery, but I don't have to make a cut. I'll just let it run. So yes, I'm grateful for both those characters, but I feel like the right thing to do is to actually distance myself from their content. I've also had another epiphany. My goal in life, I think, should be to be a good person. And that's a complicated thing. I thought about this, the idea of being a good person. Being a good person is extremely complicated because there are many extremes to what a person can be. There's an infinite amount of what a person can be. A lot of people who are popular, that you know of, who you might see as good persons, those people you don't know personally, so immediately you'll think of celebrities who have charities, who do things for people. Are they good people? I suppose, is there such a thing as a good person? I don't know. But I'm realizing that a lot of, well, people are much more complex. People are extremely complex. And the fact that someone does something good does not negate the fact that they might be a bad person, or that they, if there is such a thing as a bad person, that they might be a bad person. It's a weird thing. I used to always believe this idea that there are no good and bad people, just people who do bad things and good things. And that as a result, because that I believe that to be the case, people do good or bad things, then there are no bad people. But if you're a person who does a lot of good things frequently and a lot of bad things frequently, what are you? Because once again, if you're someone who likes to engage in amoral activities and who happens to be very wealthy and you give a lot of money to charity, that's a good deed. And then behind closed doors, maybe you believe in karma, you believe that if you do the good deed, it will correct the bad deed. Then you're not a good person, are you? If there is such a thing as a good person. I wrote this screenplay called Half Face, and the idea was to make a superhero movie. I wanted to do that because it's the genre that has, for most of my lifetime, it seems, has been the most powerful, the thing that gets the most seats, the most butts in seats, the most money, that gets talked about the most, those movies. So I thought, could I write one? Because of how extremely challenging it is, because it's been done so many times. Now, it hasn't been done that many times. They've done the same movie many, many times, but a different movie with a superhero hasn't been done that many times. And so the idea was a form of a deconstruction of the genre. I like breaking things down into comprehensible structures, let's say. And so in the superhero genre, you have your heroes, your villains, and your anti-heroes. Then I thought, what defines a hero, a superhero, whatever, a villain and an anti-hero? And it's quite muddy, but I think a hero is someone who does good things for a good reason. Usually in movies, superheroes especially do only good things. But a hero can be someone who does bad things for a good reason as well. And that's where it's complicated to define, because that veers more into the anti-hero character. You look at Batman in The Dark Knight, and he does things that are wrong, as in spy on people, I believe. The submarine technology thing with Morgan Freeman's character. And that's wrong. That's a bad thing to do, but for a good reason. And so for that movie, they keep him as the hero. But they could very easily have made him an anti-hero. And the idea at the end of the film is that he is perceived as as a villain, really. So I suppose it's very hard to differentiate the two. But a hero does things for good reasons. That's the bottom line. An anti-hero usually does bad things for a good reason, or good things for a bad reason. And that's why we like those characters so much, is because they are split down the middle. They're not good, they're not bad. And obviously in movies, these are extreme versions. And then a villain does good or bad, but for a bad reason. And so I had my three characters. and I never finished the script. Good people, bad people, is that a thing? I don't know. But the idea I had is that I should aim to become a good person. And how do I do that? There are multiple layers. There's how I treat myself. There's how I treat others. And I think because of how lost I am currently in my life, in terms of what trajectory I should take, I feel like focusing on that one thing, that extremely complicated thing, that might be a wise thing to do now that I am lost, trying to be a good person by stacking up good actions, as opposed to bad ones. It's been more than a year, I think, that I've been wondering about should I cut my hair or not. And it seems like an uninteresting question with no depth. But I've always had long hair, which sounds weird because I've cut it repeatedly, but then I've always let it grow back. So most people that I've ever known will know me as a person with long hair. And I've cut it a few times because I hated the fact that people saw me as the guy with the long hair and defined me that way. I didn't like the idea of being able to hide behind it, the idea of my identity being this thing. I don't like feeling stuck. So I've been wondering, why do I keep the hair? Why don't I cut it? Or why should I cut it? Why would I cut it? Now there are logical reasons. Hair is annoying. I have to comb my hair regularly. I haven't done it in 3 days. I think it's going to be a pain when I do it. It serves no purpose. It's cold at the moment, but I can wear a hat. It serves no purpose. And yet I choose to keep it. And I keep thinking I need to cut it. It's useless. It's in the way. It serves no purpose. It's, cumbersome. It's a time waste, an energy waste, even a financial waste if I have to buy any kind of product for it. And yet I keep it. I don't know why. There's no answer to that question. And maybe next episode it'll be gone. Who knows? This morning I was listening to The Weeknd. I got my Spotify Wrapped, and he's one of the artists I listen to the most. Might be the one this year. And I've wanted to make that point for the past few weeks. I think I tried, and I'm going to try again. The idea that music with lyrics, especially, is dangerous. And I was listening to Sidewalks, which, that song slaps. The instrumental is great. And I was listening to the lyrics, and I thought, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with the message in some lines. Yet I know it, by heart, and I'm singing it. And there are people who are so far gone that they pay no attention to this idea, that they don't care. They sing demented, disgusting stuff because it sounds good to them, even though it doesn't really sound good. It's shit music. But popular music has these messages which push a narrative which I disagree with. And I watched a lot of Sneeko this year, him going through his different phases. He's Muslim now, and he mentions that I thought it was the camera. I don't know why. He mentions that as a Muslim, you're not supposed to listen to music that is not I don't know exactly, but he can't listen to popular music. And he listens to it still. And then, he says, oh, I'm not supposed to listen to it. And he doesn't really talk about why, I feel like. He doesn't really talk about why one might want to stay away from popular music. And as I was listening to the lyrics and thinking, I like this song, I like the way it sounds, and I said it, I thought, why am I saying this right now if it's not something I believe in, if I believe it's wrong? And so I believe, as hard as it sounds, I need to cut off that type of music. Because when you listen to that music, these songs all share same ideologies. A specific one that I've been mentioning for the past 2 weeks is this idea that as a man, you're more of a man if you have sex with more women. And more and more, I'm becoming a huge believer in the idea that it's the opposite, that it diminishes you. That, pointless sex is something that diminishes you. And that viewing people in that way and going through your life with that mindset is negative and diminishes you. But that's not the narrative. That's not the popular narrative. I used to believe it, and most people, especially men, do see that as a thing that makes sense and is important. As a man, you go to the gym to get strong, to get big, so you can get the girl, so you can sleep with different women every night, you get the money, etc., the success for that. And this message is being reinforced from every angle. And recently I was talking with a friend about this idea, and he's also in many ways the opposite of me, because he's a confident guy who approaches women, who I'm sure has had a more promiscuous life than me. And we are converging on this idea that less sex leads to more success, that less sex is the way forward to be better in many aspects. And once again, I don't know where this message is being broadcasted from. There are these weird videos about semen retention and how you'll be able to levitate above everyone else after a certain amount of days. But it's a question of mentality, I think. If it's your mind is broken, that's how I see it. From a very young age, we are led to believe that will make us happy. That's what we're supposed to do. That makes us more manly. And we hear it everywhere, and we listen to music, and we sing that message, we learn it, we embody it. And there isn't really a counterpart. Men sharing this narrative that the opposite is positive and the opposite is more important. In other news, I suppose you are what you eat, and for some reason I've decided to consume all that manosphere red pill content out of curiosity, and I've really been sucked into all that shit. So that's what I talk about. So being in a relationship, I think of my role as a man, and I think to myself, as a man, oh my god, I almost died. As a man, I want to look after my partner, who's a woman. And I'm realizing that there's a lot of emphasis being put on this idea of as a man. And I am not a man. I'm me. And so I feel like I should rephrase it to as me, as Abraham. I feel like that's this or that is my duty. I should behave in that way. And you'll never meet the average person. They don't exist, right? No one is average. As much as I said that you are nothing, you are, not the first or the last of anything. The average person doesn't exist. What makes us people, what makes us individuals, is that we have certain things in which we are not average. Whatever they may be, they are what makes us individuals. So the average person doesn't exist. And so we talk a lot in those absolute terms of men should be this, women should be that. And it takes a lot of work to consume these ideas and this content that talks about what you should be as a man, what you should be as a woman, what you should be as a person. It takes a lot of work to consume that and to then understand that you are an individual and you should take what is positive in that message, what you feel resonates with you. You should do some research, do some practical experiments, so to speak, to see where you fit in that puzzle. I mentioned that in the last episode, this idea that people form tribes around ideas and then they can't really, I suppose they create religions. This manosphere thing is in a way a religion. And then you have people from different religions fighting when at the start they had the same, when really, one person is saying, my God is better, your God is better. And the idea of a God is the same on both sides. But they've attached all these ideas around it and made it more specific. And they have their tribe now. And so they go to war against the other tribe. And so same with the manosphere, you can't, it's hard to say, I belong to that ideology, but I'm an individual, therefore I don't entirely agree with it. As much as I have become indifferent to the idea of a camera recording me and random people being able to watch this, I haven't improved much in the way of formulating my ideas and structure. I really think I need to bring another person into this to have a conversation rather than just blabbering indefinitely by myself. I watch these videos and I really envy the idea of being on a quote-unquote panel and having people discussing ideas and disagreeing and learning things. Seems nice. Been watching a show called Scavenger's Reign with Ty, and it's visually stunning. And I suppose in many ways the subject of the show is the cycle of life. And I love these films or shows where the plot is just an excuse to explore beauty. In that case, the plot is very thin. People trying to get from A to B. And you don't watch it for the plot. You watch it for the experience of watching it. And it seems to be about the cycle of life. And there's this scene in it that serves no purpose to the plot, as far as I know. I haven't finished yet. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful and it's, dark and sad. And there's no dialogue. It's very simple. And after we saw it, I made the comment to Ty about how much I like that scene. And it's hard to pull off. I have done a lot of research on the idea of writing a movie. I've mentioned before the idea that Scenes require conflict, but therefore desires. And films that stray away from that formula usually don't succeed, and they feel wrong. They lose their audience at some point. You have to follow that structure as best as possible. But some movies do that for the whole movie, and some movies are able to have scenes that don't follow that and that make the movie better. And that was one of those scenes. And it was a really powerful thing. Good scene. So I highly recommend Scavenger's Reign. I've really been drooling on the same subjects for the past few weeks. Tomorrow I'm going back to my workplace to take pictures for a colleague's daughter's birthday. Which, I don't know, could be fun. Tonight is the UFC. Could be fun. And then, Lordy Lord, next week, going to Winter Wonderland. Could be fun. And I have to finish a music video pronto. Could be fun. I have to print my Christmas cards still. Could be fun. I haven't bought my ticket to go to Paris because I'm a fool. I bought the return. I bought a Eurostar ticket because I'm fancy like that. I bought it months in advance. But the journey to go to Paris, I'm gonna buy a coach ticket. And the prices were £30 all through December. And now some days have disappeared. And I find myself in a tight spot where I'm gonna have to ask my manager if I can miss a week of work so that I can afford my coach ticket or not miss any days and pay more, which doesn't make sense now, does it? Because if I work a week more, I'll be paid more money. I just don't like the idea of spending a lot of money on a coach ticket. You know, fail to plan, plan to fail. I should really take more notes throughout the week because this podcast could be 10 hours long and much less uninteresting and slow. I'm thinking about this idea of shame. It's 2 years ago I confronted this idea of the fact that I can't hold on to things. And it was a very cathartic experience. And I'm not sure if I can mention it like this in public. The thing that I realized after sharing it, and it was a violent outburst when I did. The thing I realized is that after that, I could share it with anyone. I held on to it for 20 years. Not 20 years. For 10 years. And I felt a lot of shame about it. I couldn't talk about it to anyone. I couldn't express it. It felt wrong. I felt foolish. And after it exploded out of me, now I feel comfortable with talking about it to anyone at any point. I feel no shame, no nothing about it. Which is the thing to me that shows me that I'm not just talking when I say that I have healed myself to a degree and that I am in the process of healing myself. That it's a different chapter. People will say that type of stuff. I've moved on, I've healed, I have forgiven, that type of stuff. And not do it, really. A lot of people do that. And so I've been asking myself, after that moment where the outburst happened, Am I working on it? Have I done the right thing? Am I on the right trajectory? And to me, one of those signs that it's the case is that I feel comfortable talking about it to anyone. And, it wasn't the case before that moment. It was definitely not the case. I felt extreme shame. I felt very small, very pathetic for how I felt and for how I viewed my experience. And I think it's a weird blessing because my experience was definitely not that extreme. The thing that affected me was not that extreme, but it had an extreme impact on me. And so I feel very comfortable now in mentioning this idea that you shouldn't hold on to, your traumas and feel ashamed about them. I feel comfortable in saying that because mine felt so small and yet had such a big impact. And so on one hand, I understand how bigger traumas might have, much larger impacts on people. But I suppose it's more complex than that. It's not just the incident that matters and the gravity of the incident. It's also how you react to it. Small things can have big impacts. And so from my perspective, knowing how ashamed I was that I was traumatized by something that felt so trivial, not quite trivial, but so small, I feel comfortable in saying that you shouldn't hold on to things. You're not special. Whatever happened, whatever might have happened to you, isn't a big deal. Even things that are a big deal, that everyone agrees are a big deal. What's a bigger deal is when you hold on to it and you let it eat you away. The title will be Sex is Great, but World Conquest is Better. And I am experimenting with these ideas of less sex, and it's scary. It's scary because I'm wondering how might my partner feel about it in terms of once again, something I've heard all my life is more sex is better. Even in a healthy, version of that, of having a relationship with someone, being in a healthy relationship, more sex is better. You always hear this. And especially at our ages, where naturally we are more inclined to desire more sex and to have a stronger sex drive, it feels counterintuitive to say, I believe that, restraining from sex for a while or having less sex less often, would be a good thing. On my end, I'm fine with doing it, experimenting in that way. But I don't know what impact it could have on us. I guess there's only one way to find out. Alright. I am done. Dunzo. Finito. Fini. Terminé. Yeah. Don't hold on to things. You're not special.